The first Democratic primary debate of 2020 will be held tonight in Des Moines, Iowa, just less than 3 weeks ahead of the state's caucus. 6 candidates will take the stage, including Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Tom Steyer. It could also be the final debate before the Senate impeachment trial. Tonight's event comes amid a bit of a feud between Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. They've been longtime allies, but Warren claims Sanders told her he didn't believe a woman could win the presidency. CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns is in Des Moines. Caitlin, can we expect Senator Sanders and Warren to clash on stage tonight?
Well, I think they'll certainly be asked about this tonight at the debate. We're just 20 days away from the Iowa caucuses. This is a critical debate. And this fraying of the relationship between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren marks a real turning point in this race. These are 2 longtime allies and friends. Over the course of the campaign, they have really stayed away from attacking one another. You asked each campaign throughout the course of this race about one another, and they really said that they were close, they were friends. They kind of had this informal non-aggression pact set earlier in the campaign. Now that has certainly seemed to appear to fall by the wayside. What's interesting here, though, is whether these 2 candidates want to escalate this further tonight, or you can bet they'll be asked about it, whether they kind of want to leave it here. But it does come at a time where we have seen Elizabeth Warren lose support among the more liberal members of the Democratic Party over the course of the past couple of days. That we've seen that reflected in the CBS News Battleground Tracker, losing that support to Bernie Sanders. So they're certainly competing for the same voters, especially here in Iowa. And then it injects a new discussion, or revives a discussion rather, of 2016 about the role of gender. Elizabeth Warren, when you look at the top contenders in this field, is really the only woman that is polling high with these other contenders. So does that kind of become a turning point or an inflection point in this race as well? But you can certainly imagine that they will address this tonight, and whether these campaigns want to continue to make it an issue, we'll have to see, and how this is resonating with voters. I will say that we've seen some progressive outside groups raise concerns about this fight between them. They want to stay united and kind of keep this focused on the more moderate centrist wing of the party. So who could this potentially help? Well, maybe someone like Joe Biden, who has been able to kind of remain above the fray here. He's doing really well in polls and on the ground in some of these early states. Does this allow him to kind of gain some momentum as these 2 are duking it out?
I wanted to touch on recent polls show a very close race in Iowa. The newest Iowa poll from Monmouth University does put Biden with a small lead. Who needs to have a good night tonight? Who are you watching? This is a really wide open race with just 20 days to go. You talk to campaigns and strategists alike on the ground, and they say it's anyone's guess really at this point who can pull out a victory here. Several of these campaigns are looking for a good finish, enough to collect enough delegates to make the case to go forward. A couple people I'm watching tonight. One, Amy Klobuchar from the neighboring state of Minnesota. She's been looking to make kind of a surprise race in Iowa, trying to kind of paint herself as an underdog who can do well here. She will really need a good place finish in Iowa to make the case to continue on, because she's been talking about her credentials as a Midwestern senator. Also looking at Pete Buttigieg, who has lost some ground in some of the most recent polls, had been pitching himself kind of as a uniting candidate, someone that is a little more centrist than some of the others. Does he benefit from this feud between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren? Is he able to recapture some momentum when a lot of the other senators are going to have to go back to D.C. Next week and away from the campaign trail to deal with impeachment? And of course, Joe Biden. How does this kind of help him perhaps keep going and remain in his front-runner status? Caitlin, as we know, this is the final debate before the Iowa caucuses. What are undecided voters there going to be watching for? Well, an Iowa poll over the weekend had a very interesting number that I think a lot of these candidates have been looking at, and that is 45%. 45% of voters say that they could still make up their minds, that they're not necessarily wed to a candidate yet. We were at a candidate event last night for Pete Buttigieg, talked to a lot of voters there. A lot of them said they will make this decision really in the final days, but they'll be watching this debate tonight to kind of help make that decision. So these candidates know that.
this stage tonight will see the fewest number of candidates ever in this race on the stage, with just 6 candidates. That will allow for more of a real robust debate. We'll see foreign policy likely to come up as an issue on the debate stage. So that could give some of these contenders a way to really make their case for voters who, while they've been tuning in, while they've been watching these candidates, are now into the point of the campaign where they're starting to get ready to make a decision. There's still a lot of fluidity to this race, and the campaigns certainly know it.
A big night tonight, indeed. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you. For more on this, I want to bring in Joel Payne and Matt Gorman. Joel is a CBSN political contributor and Democratic strategist. Matt is a former communications director for the National Republican Congressional Committee and a Republican strategist. What will you both be watching for in tonight's debate? Joel, let's start with you.
Well, a couple things. Caitlin made some great points there. I think the Sanders-Warren kind of friendly Cold War will be a very interesting subplot here. Look, I think, all of the conventional wisdom has been they have signed this, non-aggression pact, this informal non-aggression pact, and I think that goes up in smoke. And I think the person who put it up in smoke was Elizabeth Warren. I'm pretty sure her people leaked that story to Politico so that they could build a situation where they could have that very non-committal response where she pretty clearly put it out there that Bernie Sanders may have said this in this private meeting. And what it's done is it's actually agitated a lot of old concerns about Sanders, gender, some of the stuff in 2016. Bernie Sanders took a lot of flack for not coalescing support behind Hillary Clinton. I think a lot of people thought that was a gender-based decision. I don't know if that was Senator Sanders' decision, but some of his supporters, I think there have been some accusations of sexism, if not explicit then implicit. So there's a lot there. One other thing to look out for tonight, Tom Steyer. He's made a lot of traction in Nevada and South Carolina, and I wouldn't be surprised if he took a little bit more incoming as well. He's kind of gotten a chance to slide and stay to the back the last few debates, and I think Steyer may get a little bit more attention, particularly from someone like a Pete Buttigieg or an Amy Klobuchar, who are fighting to kind of get out of that middle class of the field.
Matt, what about you? What are you going to have your eye on tonight?
Well, yeah, you're right. To echo Joel's point, certainly all eyes will be on Warren and Sanders. I had a lot of flashbacks. I worked for Jeb Bush in 2016, and it reminded me a lot of Trump and Ted Cruz in 2015 and in 2016. If you remember, Cruz really attached himself to Trump. They had a non-aggression pact. And then all of a sudden, a little bit later on, Cruz and Trump really started going at each other. And the problem is, if you're Warren or in that case, Ted Cruz, when you attach yourself and say you're not going to attack somebody, when you all of a sudden start doing it, you look, really pretty disingenuous. Obviously, Elizabeth Warren knew about this meeting for almost a year now, over a year. And it didn't bother her until she started getting down in the polls right before Iowa. And I know Caitlin also mentioned foreign policy. I think foreign policy will come up tonight. I don't think it'll be as much Iran, but I actually think, if you remember, back for the last week before Bernie and Warren started mixing it up, Bernie and Joe Biden were talking a lot about Iraq and his vote for the Iraq war. And if you notice, Joe Biden has been a little wishy-washy on where he's been with not only the Iraq war vote, but his position on the bin Laden raid. So I think I would watch that tonight as well.
Joel, this is the first debate since the U.S. tensions with Iran have increased. And Matt just touched on this a bit. How much do you expect foreign policy to be a topic tonight?
I think it will get increased attention tonight, and rightfully so. There's always in our presidential elections and our primary processes, there's this commander-in-chief test that we always put the potential candidates or the potential nominees up to. And I think that tonight that might take center stage. When you look at someone like Joe Biden, he's got a lot of experience in that arena, but his decisions on things like the war in Iraq and other national security, what some people would call blunders, could come under some criticism. You look at someone like Pete Buttigieg, who's got a background as a veteran, whether or not that will take some more center stage. So I think that the raw material is there for that to certainly get a little bit more attention tonight. I think that the national security, foreign policy issues have taken a back burner so far in the race. Now we're in the last 30-day sprint. I think it could certainly come to the top.
The Trump campaign is planning to fly an aerial banner and run an ad in Iowa tonight. Matt, how is the Trump campaign trying to impact the messaging around the debate?
Yeah, I worked for Mitt Romney in 12 and again for Jeb Bush in 16. Coming from the other side of this, really what the campaign is going to do is they're going to be looking and watching this debate very closely, as they did all the others. And they're going to be clipping video, retaining all the quotes, and making sure that they have a record of all the positions that Democrats are moving left on for when the fall campaign really starts in earnest. So, for example, Medicare for all, as in past debates, as that's been litigated, certainly that would be something that they're going to be keeping in their files. But also decriminalization of the border and tax increases. Really what the Trump campaign wants to do, certainly there's some earned media plays, as you mentioned before, but they want to sit and lie in wait and use Democrats' own positions against them when the time comes in the fall.
Nikki, can I just say something? That's
Sure.
about the not to Matt's point there, but to what the Trump campaign is planning. That's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay, so you have a Democratic Party where a lot of people would think you've got these fractures that the party is going to elevate tonight, and so you insert yourself. If I was a Republican, particularly a Republican donor that's been given all these millions of dollars to the Trump campaign, I'd be putting in a call to all of the people who've been raising money for me today, or rather up to date, and I'd say, please stop this. Please save that money until you have a nominee. Please stop playing in the Democratic primary. I think the Trump campaign is trying to be a little bit cute by half here.
Go ahead.
No, I hear Joel's point. I do. I think I've also been on the other side of that, where you hear donors, and the like, when the Democrats have center stage for an entire night, and all they're doing is bashing your candidate. In this case, it would be President Trump. They'll get on the phone and be like, "What the heck are you doing? You're ceding the entire night to these people. They're attacking you, and you're not going back." I certainly hear Joel's point. I think there's another aspect to this, and look, we'll see how it goes. I think that either way. Then that'll mostly be about the Democrats.
I want to switch to another topic. None of the candidates on the stage tonight will be people of color. Senator Cory Booker suspended his presidential campaign yesterday. He was asked about the lack of diversity in the race earlier on CBS This Morning.
We have got to find a way as a party, as a nation, both parties, to understand that we are a diverse nation. I got to the United States Senate, was stunned when I first got there about how little diversity there was on Senate staffs. Thank God Schumer worked with me and Brian Schatz to change a lot of that. We are a better nation when we bring hidden figures together with white male astronauts. That's how we defy gravity and go to the moon. And the Democratic Party, which represents the true rainbow coalitions of America, has got to do a better job of getting more candidates running at all levels, supporting a system that doesn't benefit big money, but really big values. What are the values of our party?
Joel, what do you make of what Senator Booker said?
Look, there's a lot there to unpack. I think Senator Booker makes some great points. I think Senator Harris, when she exited the race, made some very impassioned pleas to make sure that the party was inclusive of diverse voices. I think that there are more ways to be inclusive than just having candidates on the stage. It'd be nice to have, candidates from different ethnic backgrounds and different racial backgrounds on stage throughout the primary process. But as we know, voters have a voice here, and voters have consistently said that the candidates who are going to be on stage tonight are the ones that have been able to gain the most support, raise the most money, and have the most consistent presence across the country. There was a point in this race where Kamala Harris was the #1 candidate and raised the most money and had the most support, and she couldn't hold on to it. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with suggesting that is Democratic primary voters who have historically nominated Hillary Clinton last time and just reelected Barack Obama 2 times in the last decade. I don't think we're within a party apparatus that is hostile to people of color.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the Senate will get the articles of impeachment tomorrow. This debate could be the final debate before a Senate impeachment trial. There are still 4 senators running for president. Matt, how crucial could this debate time be for senators like Sanders, Warren, and Klobuchar, who could be pulled away from the trial?
Oh, certainly. And I know some on the far left, and I know Kevin McCarthy brought it up today, how some are saying that Pelosi might have schemed with Joe Biden to take some of these senators off the trail so he and even Mayor Pete could have Iowa to himself. Look, I think absolutely every time you're in front of voters, especially in a primetime national audience, that's certainly key. But I'll also point out, though, too, right, these Democratic primary voters, especially in early states, they are plugged in. They are watching CBSN. They're following cable news. They're watching every debate. They're motivated folks. And so they know why Warren and Sanders aren't there. So they're going to be watching the trial really every hour, I bet, or most of it. So they're going to be cued in to what they're doing, even if they're not in the state.
Joel Payne and Matt Gorman, thank you so much for your time. CBSN